Hello! So, I just finished watching the newest episode of American Horror Story Hotel, and it was a pretty good and confusing episode. So, these are my 3 favorite moments. Number 3 would be when John and the creepy vampire little girl, I think her name is Ren, are talking and they meet up in the hospital. So basically, John found out that the 10 Commandments killer guy, he has a little assistant, and he found out where the assistant was. He found out that it was in a hospital, like a mental ward, a loony bin, so he had himself committed, and then he found his happy ass into the restricted zone where the said assistant was being held. Ended up being the little girl that was one of the creepy vampire kids that Lady Gaga had at the Cortez. She goes on to explain how she became what she was and how she is involved with the 10 Commandments killer. It was really interesting to see her background and how she came about, you know, meeting the Countess and all of that. It was pretty interesting. Probably the only interesting thing of John's entire storyline, to be quite honest, at least this episode. To be 100% honest, I'm only including him because I feel like I have to. But I honestly do not find his storyline at all interesting or entertaining whatsoever, so I'm not going to spend much time on him. I just don't really find it interesting. Yeah. So number 2 is we get to find out how Mr. March and the Countess met and got married. I thought it was pretty exciting. So, the Countess finds her happy ass over at the Hotel Cortez. It was like a flashback scene, obviously. She's there with her friend at some party, and then they make eye contact, her and Mr. March. And basically, they just relate on some weird, sick, crazy level. There's this really funny part where well, it's not funny. Well, I found it funny, but he was in the room, like, chopping up some dude, and she walks in, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "Oh, just some hobo." "Why, do you disapprove?" And she's like, "Yes, I do. Can you please pick your next victim to have money and jewels so that we can at least gain something? Don't pick some nameless loser who can offer us nothing." And then she's like, "And next time, let me watch." And you could tell that he was into it. He was like, "I will be more than happy to let you watch next time." So, I personally really enjoy watching Mr. March, probably because of the actor. I think he's doing an amazing job. I have now watched all of these seasons, and I think that this is my favorite of his. I really enjoyed it. I really think his accent is on point to me. Just his acting in general is really impressive, and I really like it. And Mr. March is really probably the only storyline I find completely 100% entertaining, which leads me to my number 1, is we get to see how the Countess / Lady Gaga was turned. And that's where it kind of gets confusing, because it does a flashback, and Lady Gaga is on some movie set, and she sees this actor that she really likes, and it turns out to be an exact clone of Tristan Duffy, the guy that she killed, the actor that she killed that was in love with Liz Taylor in the previous episode. So I was a little bit confused, but that's okay, I guess. Anyway, so she goes on to talking to her little friend, the one that she goes to the party at Hotel Cortez, basically talking about how she finds him super attractive and all of that. She's a fangirl. And she ends up at his house. He invites her there, and she meets what the media is making out to be his ex-wife, but they are actually together, and they're in love, and all this shit. So they start doing this, like, menage a trois kind of thing, you know, like, all three of them are in, big relationship, they love each other, all that. And it's really interesting to see. And then, his name's Valentino, the actor that she's into, the one that looks like Tristan Duffy, and his wife is named Natasha. In the beginning of the episode, we see these two construction workers, because as we know, Drake is doing construction. They tear down the steel wall, and Valentino and Natasha are emaciated. They're just not looking good. They've clearly never had any in a very long time. They looked like they were 200 years old. They were a mess. And so they go and kill the two construction workers, and that's how we first meet them. Well, in the flashback, Valentino somehow dies. We later find out that he didn't. Well, he did, but not really, And so when the Countess believes that he died, that's when she goes and meets Mr. March, and they get married. They have some crazy, weird relationship. It's just nuts. Anyways, so she goes every day to Valentino's gravesite, basically every day paying her respects. She gives him a rose every day, blah, blah. So one day she goes over there, and out of nowhere, Natasha and Valentino show up. They explain that they are now vampires, and they live forever, and all of that, and they want to turn her. Well, Mr. March finds out all about this. He follows the Countess, to the mortuary, or the cemetery, and basically overhears Valentino and Natasha talking about how they want to take her away and just escape, and they can all live together forever, be vampires, and do weird shit together, And he's not into it, obviously, because he actually really loved the Countess, because she was cuckoo, just like him. And so, he ends up having Natasha and Valentino entombed into the Hotel Cortez walls for life. Well, up until Drake started doing the construction and got tore down and all that. And it was an awesome scene, because there comes a point where Lady Gaga, the Countess, and Mr. March are having dinner together, and she goes on to explain that she is an honest person, and she wanted to be real with him and tell him that she plans on marrying Mr. Drake, and they're going to be together. And it was funny, because he was like, alright, well, when you plan on killing him, how about you try doing it off of the property? And, he was being a smartass. Now, side note, Gaga is talking to Mr. March in present day, so that makes him a ghost. So she's talking to a ghost, all that. Anyways, so she told him, she was like, who's to say that I actually who's to say that I don't love him? Maybe for the first time, I've actually fallen in love, and I actually love Mr. Drake. Maybe I'm not just doing this for material wealth or just to kill him. And then Mr. March was like, bitch, I'm dead, not stupid, okay? Like, I know what you're doing. And so she tells him, she's like, well, maybe I'm in love with him. And he told her, he's like, well, it wouldn't be the first time you were in love, surely, Mrs. March. Clearly irritated. And she told him, she's like, I was never in love with you. I never claimed to be in love with you. Don't even try to go there. And he told him, he's like, Mr. March told her, he was like,
not to mention with Freya's ultimate.
What did he say? Oh, he was like, I wasn't talking about me. Hinting and later telling her that he knew all about Valentino and Natasha, and that he put them in the walls, and she went off. She was going fucking crazy. She was pissed. She didn't know that he did that. And so she's quite livid, and for good reason. But it was really, really nice to see. I thought it was a really interesting little dynamic. I really enjoyed watching them together. Lady Gaga's acting is amazing, and I can't wait to see the next episode. The season's getting better and better each episode, I think, and I'm really enjoying it. I really, really like their flashbacks, and I really enjoy seeing Mr. March interact with all of the characters. Specifically, I really enjoy seeing him and Mrs. Evers, the maid, and him and the Countess interacting. I think it's great. And I'm super stoked to see what's coming up next. I'm still a little bit confused about the whole Tristan Duffy and Valentino. They look so much alike. Is that supposed to explain why she wasn't into the idea of sharing him with Liz Taylor, or what? I don't know. Either way, I'm really pumped to see what's going on. Natasha and Valentino have escaped the hotel, so they're out and about creating havoc. You know they're hungry as hell, so that's going to be cool, and I'm really excited, and it should be awesome. So let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, tell me what you thought of the episode. Alright, bye guys!